We are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Flugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our ever-growing channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends if you want to support this channel. This Rebel Outpost channel of all of college football YouTube channels. If you want to support it through a donation, just hit that $ where you make a comment and we'll get to you super chat as quick as possible. Welcome into the studio that sits on the very corner of Keith Jackson Parkway in Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. PATC Community tonight. Do not be afraid to be a legend with your comments in the chat room and with your phone calls later in the show. Tonight is a simple PATC Saturday night is all right for PATC live show. It's going to be a simple one. We haven't been talking about Clemson lately. We've been talking about everything else. I've been laying off the Clemson talk. It has been crickets, like it's been mentioned in the chat already. And it could be crickets. It could be crickets. Or it might not be crickets here in the next 3 weeks. I released an early peak episode for the members of Early Peak Cloak and Dagger. Early this morning, I gave them just a little glimpse. No, it wasn't this morning, early afternoon. I gave them a little bit of a glimpse of what we're going to be talking about Saturday night PATC. We're going to take a step back. We're going to go back in time to November 15th. And what I discussed on a live show, we gave the date range. We gave the date range when Clemson could follow up and declare themselves in an attempt to get out of the ACC grant of rights. We gave a date range. And hint, hint, wink, wink, that date range that we were told, we were given the okay to report, that date range started today. Now, we're also going to be going over an article. Now, I did not talk about this on the Cloak and Dagger early peak episode. And I did not talk about this yesterday on Friday, January 19th. I wanted to talk about this, what I was very good written article about the Clemson situation, about the Florida State situation, about maybe it's better for Clemson to sit and wait and watch what happens. It's taken a different angle to what we've been told that Clemson has been planning all this time. In the article, there was a legal expert who thought Florida State's one part of Florida State's argument to the courts about the ACC grant of rights was weak. It wasn't going to work. But the other part of the Florida State's argument, well, this law expert thinks it's a winner. I wanted to talk about this yesterday, but the North Carolina situation, we had to do a live show to talk about the vote that's going to happen Wednesday. We're going to be talking a lot ACC next week. A lot. Basically, next week is ACC week. Tonight, we're going to be focusing in on Clemson. Just to give you a little bit of a hint of one of the many things that we're going to be talking about ACC country. Next week, the ACC is releasing their football schedule for the 2024 season. And they've broken it up into 3 separate days. I think this is a good idea. Why not? You got the ACC network. Break it up 3 different days. Now, maybe some people they want it all at once. I understand that, but you're looking to advertise, you're looking to market, you're looking to brand, you're trying to occupy some space in the college football world. Why not break it up into 3 different days? The first day, Monday, at 4 p.m. Eastern time, they're going to be releasing the week 1 schedule. The schedule reveal for week 1 of the college football ACC schedule. Now, I'm interpreting, I believe that is to be week 1 as in August 29th being the Thursday, August 30th being the Friday, and August 31st being the Saturday of week 1. I don't believe that means week 1 of, let's say, week 1 of the conference slate of all, like all the ACC teams are playing their first conference game. I believe week 1 is August 29th, August 30th, August 31st. That's what I believe to be. And we do know, there's a couple things we know when it comes to the ACC schedule. We do know the matchups. We don't know the dates, right? We know some of the dates. But a lot of the games, we don't have the dates. For example, Now, tell me if I'm wrong in the chat or with your phone calls later in the show, but I believe Miami, Florida is the Hurricanes are going to be on the road. They're going to play the Florida Gators August 31st. I believe Syracuse plays Max Ohio Bobcats on August 31st. I believe we do know that Clemson plays Georgia on August 31st in Atlanta, which is a big game. And we also know that Thursday, North Carolina is going to be where? At Huntington Bank Stadium in Minnesota. North Carolina Tar Heels versus my Minnesota Golden Gophers. That's week 1, Thursday. So we do know some of the games, but a lot of teams don't know what their week 1 game is. So I believe that's where we're going to see a week 1. Tuesday next week, they're going to be releasing the Thursday and Friday special games, primetime games. And then on Wednesday, we're going to get the whole 2024 schedule release show, ACC Network. And that one's also going to be on, I believe, ESPN2. The Monday and Tuesday shows are going to be on the ACC Network. Now, I'm going to do the best I can to cover that. I'm either in an episode for everybody or a live show. We'll see what happens. Now, I know I'm not going to be able to do the Monday show live when it's happening. I have an appointment. But maybe later on that day, later on Monday, maybe I'll do a show and maybe I can cover it live on Tuesday. But whatever. It's going to be ACC schedule. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So keep your head on a swivel on that. Plus we have the possibility of that vote being taken in North Carolina Board of Governors. Are they going to vote to give themselves more power? The UNC system president, Peter Hans, more powers to be able to have the veto pen on North Carolina's financial plans if they decide to leave to another conference, if the ACC implodes. So we're going to have that vote on Wednesday as well. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we're going to be talking a lot of ACC football. Also, we're going to go over just quick here. We're going to go over just quickly here. Some news, big news. It's already old news, right? I mean, college football, it moves so fast. That's why we're constantly doing episodes and live shows, just to keep up, right? Just to keep up. The big news. All-American sophomores Fafita, McMillan, Fafita, T-Mac are returning to Arizona. They celebrated during the Arizona Wildcats basketball games. The boys want to run it back and keep the family together. Tucson, Les Fafita said, big news for the Arizona Wildcats. Big news as they try to compete for a Big 12 championship. They're going to be in the hunt. Brent Brennan, the new head coach, coming from San Jose State. And what was mentioned by Fafita's family in this article, it wasn't Fafita and T-Mac going to Washington. Washington did not finish up the runner-up here. It wasn't Arizona versus Washington. It was Arizona versus Alabama. Alabama. Kalen DeBoer wanted Fafita and T-Mac. but they decide to run it back one more time at Arizona. We also got the big news. Big news. Caleb Downs. Holy smokes. Committing to the Ohio State Buckeyes. What this guy did as a true freshman, well, I'm a little scared for the Buckeyes are absolutely stacked. They are going to make one massive run, not just at the Big Ten championship, but the whole thing. They have got so much talent coming back, and they've added so much talent. It is, well, we are now at the we're at the point where it's getting scary, right? And this is what happens. This is the natural ebb and flow, competition. This is competition. This is Michigan winning 3 straight Big Ten championships, and this is the Buckeyes saying, it ain't gonna happen. You won a national championship. You won 3 straight Big Ten championships. Now we got it. We've got to get it going here. Athletic director working with the collectives are booming. The donors are writing checks. Everybody's upset in Columbus. They want a Big Ten championship at the very least, but they want the natty. They want the natty. And they're stripping Alabama bare. It's the natural ebb and flow. Bama's going to come back again. Michigan's taking a step back. They'll be back again. Competition. And then, well, talking about stripping Alabama bare, Kaden Proctor, the number 1 high school offensive lineman from the state of Iowa, goes to Alabama. He was committed to Iowa. He decommitted from Iowa. He went to Alabama, and he shined at Alabama. He just didn't play. He didn't just play as a true freshman. The tackle position, he shined at the tackle position as a true freshman. He's a monster. And now he's committed to Iowa. He's going back home to Iowa. This is a massive day for the Iowa Hawkeyes. They don't even have an offensive coordinator. It don't matter to Proctor. He's going back home. Cade McNamara, he's got a big smile on his face, right? He has got a big smile on his face. And then Jim Harbaugh just broke this afternoon, has a second interview with the Atlanta Falcons. A couple days ago, we said that Jim Harbaugh watches on. Chargers is the favorite, but Harbaugh's going back to the second interview with the Falcons. He's got that NFL itch. He's got the itch. He's scratching it. Is he going to go? Is he going to be an NFL? Is he going to get the opportunity? He would have been the Minnesota Vikings head coach, but the Vikings were not impressed. Now, Jim Harbaugh knows he can't just walk in and get a job. He's fighting for one here, ladies and gentlemen. If he gets the opportunity, I think he's gone. Las Vegas Raiders, Antonio Pierce, they've got their head coach. That's where we were told Jim Harbaugh wanted to go, but the players and the extended family of Davis, they all wanted Pierce. They got their man. So now Harbaugh, Chargers, Falcons, so much stuff going on in college football. And if Harbaugh leaves, it's got to be Sharon Moore, right? Right? The offensive coordinator. It's got to be him. We'll get to that when it happens, if it happens. Okay, so Clemson. I got to thank everybody for coming on in on a Saturday night. The 49ers or Packers are playing. I thought maybe we'd get 60 people in here. Looks like we've got over 100. Thank you so much for coming on in. Ryan Brooks, early peak member. Don in Kansas, early peak member. Cornelius Green, praise the Lord, Greg. You are absolutely correct. Kyle Viss is in the house. Mr. Husky. Ted Evans is in the house. Expedition Greg, the big Lubbock Red Raiders, is in the house. JD Turtle. Izzo Siding in Maryland. Holy smokes. David Hackett is in the house. Early peak member. R. Webb. Holy smokes is in the house. Boy, we got a lot of people in here. Holy moly. I wasn't expecting anybody to come on in. Tony Cleveland is in. Jeff Jorgensen is in. Saturday night, PATC. Saturday night is all right for PATC. Hummus Hero is in the house. Gopher Tony is in the house. Nathan Campbell, how you doing, Nathan? Appreciate you coming on in. Illini Ted is in the house. Daniel Montcastle, Mr. Hoosier, is in the house. Stephen McNeely, Gene Calderon, Tumasta, Elliot Cruz, Clint Moses. Okay, thank you all for coming on in. Why, I appreciate you all coming in. Saturday night, there's so many other things for you young heathens to be doing on a Saturday night. But you've come into the studio that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue, and I do appreciate it. I do appreciate it. Now, let's take a step back. We're coming at this now. We're discussing this on January 20th. This is a good day to discuss this because we were told way back that January 20th was truly the first day of the window. Go or no go for launch for Clemson. Let's take a step back. I showed this in an early peak Cloak and Dagger video for the members earlier today. I'm going to show this live, and then I'm going to show something that I did not show the early peak Cloak and Dagger members. We're going to go through an article, very interesting article, that takes the opposite angle. And then it adds a little bit more information. I wanted to talk about it yesterday, but yesterday we had to do a deep dive into the state of North Carolina. So if you haven't watched that live show, watch yesterday's live show after tonight's live show. Okay. This is a live show that we did on November 15th, over a little bit over 2 months ago. We were given information about a certain date range that we should keep an eye on when it comes to Clemson pulling the trigger to follow Florida State's footpath when it comes to declaring, putting a stake in the ground and declaring we are going to be challenging the ACC grant of rights. Now, this is November 15th. We have been saying all year long, including November 15th, that Florida State was going to do what they did in the first quarter of 2024. We were 9 days off. It happened December 22nd. So when we were doing this live show, we were thinking Florida State first quarter and Clemson first quarter, and we actually had a date range of Clemson. Take a listen. It's just going to be a little, about a couple minutes of what I reported to you on November 15th. When you hear this, then you're going to understand why we're doing this show, this tonight's show on Clemson's go or no go for launch on January 20th. Take a listen. So, I'm going to give you a date range. Again, this is November 15th. If you go to our YouTube channel, November 15th live show. I'm going to give you a very important date range. Now, does that mean that tomorrow's not an important day or Friday's not going to be? Oh, this stuff, this could change. And if it does, you can give me a hard time in the chat room or with your phone calls. You can go after me because it might happen before this. It probably isn't going to happen after this date range, but it could happen before. I'm going to give you an important date range. You can take this however you want it. And I'm not getting in trouble for putting it out there. At least by the people who've given me the information. Now I'm going to get, you guys know how this works. I'm going to get dragged through the coals on this. Everywhere. Just like I did with USC, called the Big Ten. Just like I said, Colorado, it's at the center of the stage. And I told you that there was a hop up of action and that there were donor meetings in late May. I got dragged. I'm going to get dragged for this. That's fine. But I'm not going to get dragged by the people who told me this. That's what's important. I'm not saying what your opinion is important. It's very important. You can drag me. But the people giving it to me, I'm going to be able to harvest the field over and over again. I'm not getting in trouble with them. I'm okay with getting in trouble with you. I'm not okay with getting in trouble with them. But they gave me the go-ahead. That's why we came on here as fast as we possibly could. The date range, the important date range of Clemson making some sort of declaration, some sort of public stance in regards to leaving the ACC as it stands right now. We were told it's somewhere between January 20th and February 6th. There it is. January 20th and February 6th. That was the date range that was given to us. And we were given reasons why it couldn't be earlier and why it couldn't be later. And some of that we could talk about, some of that we could, and there are things we can't talk about. But there are new information. I can set a better frame of mind of why this is the date range. We were told pretty explicitly it wasn't going to happen before January 20th. No matter what Florida State did. And Florida State did end up speeding up their timeline. Right? They did it December 22nd. They didn't wait till the first quarter of 2024 like we were reporting since December 26, 2022. They sped up their timeline. It probably had to do with the playoffs now. But Clemson, we were told it wasn't going to happen before January 20th, and it probably ain't going to happen. If they're going to do it, it ain't going to happen after February 6th. This is one of the reasons why we were told, and now we can talk about it. The ACC winter meeting is February 15th. So we were told all the way back in November 15th, if Clemson is going to challenge the grant of rights, if they do this risk-benefit analysis, they've been working on this, guys, for basically a year, over 9 months. Remember, they hired the consulting firm. They've done all the groundwork, the legwork, the boots on the ground. They've done it all. They've had third-party talks with everybody. They knew exactly what Florida State was going to say. This is going to come out. It's already come out. It's going to come out more when the story is written 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 months from now. Clemson and Florida State both know the cards that they hold. Florida State was always going to be the tip of the spear. They were always going to go first. Now, the reason why we were told, and we're told again, that if Clemson pulls his trigger, it's not going to happen pretty much after February 6th date or 7th or whatever, right around that timeline. Because they're not going to go into the winter meetings. They're not going to go in the winter meetings, have discussions, participation, possibly vote on some stuff. Oh, and then in early spring, middle of spring, late spring, Clemson says, lawsuit, we're getting out of the ACC, we're challenging the grant of rights, bam. That was never going to be the game plan. So it was going to happen before the winter meetings. Clemson has quarterly meetings February 1st, February 2nd. It's an annual quarterly meeting. We were told on November 15th. It's not going to happen at the quarterly meetings. It's going to happen a few days before or a couple days after. We all saw the amended complaints that the ACC filed against Florida State. One of those major, for me and the people that I talked to, one of the major impactful amended complaints was Florida's ACC trying to get an injunction, trying to get a judge ruling saying that until the court cases are done, Florida State should not participate or have a voting rights when it comes to ACC business discussions. Florida State should not participate, should not have voting rights. The ACC wants to quicken this up. They don't want Florida State to partake. Was this a shot across the bow to Clemson? Was this just shot across the bow to any other ACC school that wants to follow Florida State's footsteps? Yes, it is. But the main point of this, and we were told this a couple months ago. That's why we gave the date range. If Clemson, Florida State did what they did, right? Now they have a long runway. If Clemson wanted a long runway, but they wanted to do it before the winter meetings, this is their window. And there is reasons why they weren't going to do it before January 20th. Some of that is personnel issues I can't get into. Some of that is they weren't certain personnel issues. They weren't going to be around. But anyway, it doesn't matter. It's January 20th. It did not happen before, obviously. So that part we were pretty sure of. Now, the other part, is Clemson going to pull the trigger? Are they going to pull the trigger in this date range that we were given on November 15th and reported to you all? Are they going to actually pull the trigger? This is the first day of the window of action, the possible window of action. This is it. This is the first day. So keep your head on a swivel starting today all the way up until about that Tuesday, Wednesday, the first full week of February. That's when supposedly, if they're going to pull the trigger, it's now. Here is an article. And by the way, nothing has changed from the people we talked to. We have been trying to get somebody to tell us it's off. It's not happening. Not happening. There's other people who are a lot more bigger, better at what they do, whatever, right? They've been around the business. There are people trying to get somebody on record to say, Clemson's not doing this. Clemson's not going to court. Can't get anybody to tell us it's not happening. So we're going to continue to watch for this to happen. And if it doesn't, we'll take the L. We'll be happy. I'll be happy to take the L. By the way, it's been Florida State's perception that Clemson was going to follow up. So remember that. And again, I'll get back, before we get to this article, I want to get to this article that I got a feeling that hardly anyone has seen. No one has brought it up to me. The people I talked to read it. It was published on the 18th, Thursday. I wanted to talk about it yesterday, but we had that whole thing just blow up in North Carolina. So I'm going to get to that because it takes the other side of the coin in some really interesting writing in this article. So I'm very excited. Another reason why we had to do this live show tonight. But it has been Florida State's perception that Clemson was going to follow up. So Clemson hasn't said anything in public. When I go through this article, Clemson basically says no comment when it comes to anything with the Florida State lawsuit. So is it the quiet before the storm, or, well, let's get to this article. The Charlotte Observer by Chapel Fowler. The Charlotte Observer. This was put in there today's edition, e-edition, Saturday, January 20th, but it was written January 18th. Okay? Florida State is suing to leave the ACC. Here's how it could help Clemson too. Fascinating article. He takes a different angle. We're not going to get caught in our silo. First of all, it gives a good indication of maybe Clemson doesn't need to do anything. Maybe they can wait and watch. The other important part of this article is a law expert, and I'm not going to be able to pronounce the name, but I'm going to do the best I can. So I apologize for anybody, to this law expert that's in the article, and to anybody who's offended by my not being able to I don't know how to pronounce the name. So I'm going to do the best I can. I apologize to everybody who is hearing this broadcast. But this law expert also gives her opinion on what is the strong point of the Florida State case, what is the weak point, but overall, she believes Florida State has a winning argument. It's very interesting. So we're going to go through this, and then we're going to get to your comments. Then we're going to get to your phone calls. You can talk about anything. College football, Kaden Proctor, Caleb Downs, Jim Harbaugh, second interview with Atlanta. and Fafita and T-Mac staying at Arizona. Here's the article. Last month, Florida State filed a historic lawsuit against the ACC, directly challenging its ground rights and steep exit fees required of any school hoping to leave the conference for another amid realignment in the sport. While the December 22 lawsuit doesn't exactly deliver on its claim the ACC is violating antitrust law by limiting Florida State's option, it does raise an interesting argument about whether the conference's massive withdrawal fee, ballparked at $572 million, is enforceable. And right there, that gives you where this law expert is going with this. The law expert in this article believes the antitrust argument of Florida State is a weak one, but the penalty phase, this is where the law expert thinks that Florida State has struck a very weak point in the ACC's argument. We'll go on. And if a court agrees with Florida State on the second claim, the money part, it could open the floodgates for other ACC schools, including Clemson, which has one of the league's most prominent and valuable football brands, to leave the ACC for another conference at a more realistic price. According to Ashwini Jaratnam, and that's who I cannot pronounce, and I apologize, Jaratnam, a New York-based lawyer who specialized in commercial and business litigation and covered the brewing ground rights drama between Florida State and ACC in a recent legal piece. This Jaratnam is the one that's given her opinion on what she thinks is going to happen. Okay? She did an article, Florida State's Way Out of the ACC. Exit penalties could be ruled unenforceable. It is centered around the legitimacy of the conference's multi-part exit fee and the possibility of a court determining a large portion of that fee is disproportionate to the harm actually suffered by schools such as Florida State leaving. If they win on that ground, quote, if they win on that ground, it will be a win not just for Florida State. It will be a win for every member of the ACC. It's the same forfeiture provision for all of them. So suddenly, all these members like Clemson could withdraw for a far less price. So what she's arguing is that that the win for Florida State, and she believes it's going to happen, the penalty, a lot less money, that's going to be a win for Clemson, and maybe they don't even have to jump into the fray. Now, we've been completely told the opposite. And we've been told the opposite by multiple different people for a very long time. But this is a different angle to this. If it's about the penalty, if they win, she says if they win on that ground, it will be a win not just for Florida State. It will be a win for every member of the ACC. Clemson has made no public actions to indicate it's on the verge of suing the ACC or take any other action. It's made no public actions. That's true. They haven't. I can tell you they have laid the groundwork to do so. They have worked and talked with Florida State. They've also had communications with North Carolina. They've done the groundwork on it. That is without a shadow of a doubt, and that's going to be proven true. But as of yet, and of course we were not expecting anything before January 20th, but as of yet, it's true. They've made no public actions to indicate it's on the verge of suing the ACC. The Tigers have been the polar opposite of Florida State when it comes to the topic of realignment, preferring to handle their business privately, rarely commenting on the subject. As such, a spokesperson told the state that Clemson athletics had no comment on Florida State's lawsuit. But the AD, Graham Neff, Clemson's athletic director, has made it clear, faced with the growing revenue gap between the ACC and other conferences, which among other concerns could directly affect Clemson's nationally prominent football team, he's committed doing what's best for the school. Couldn't be more confident and more proud of how Clemson is viewed nationally, Neff said in November, adding the university leaders will continue to do what's best for Clemson and be incredibly well read on all things landscape, network, contacts at all levels. And they've done all of that. They've done all of that. If it's in their best interest, they are committed to doing what's best for the school, and the perception at Florida State, the perception that the people we've talked to is what's best for Clemson is to join in the fray, but are they going to pull the trigger? Do they need to pull the trigger? We believe yes, but this article takes it a different angle. This is Neff. This is Graham Neff, the athletic director of Clemson. And we have consultants, and they've had them for basically a year, and support that we look to do with. It's my job to continue to position us and be connected and be nimble and strategic as it relates to the change in landscape. In other words, they've been doing a cost, benefit, risk, benefit analysis on what their next steps should be. They've done all the groundwork, the legwork. They've had all the boots on the ground. They've talked to everybody, ladies and gentlemen. They've done what Florida State's done, except they haven't filed a suit in a county in South Carolina. Clemson naturally remains one of the top ACC schools in realignment chatter heading into 2024. So in the wake of Florida State's lawsuit, the state spoke with Jaratnam, a partner at the law firm Darrell Everett LLP, to get a better idea how the suit could help or hurt the Tigers. Filed, explaining the grant of rights, going to go through this quickly. Filed 3 weeks after Florida State's undefeated football team was left out of the playoff. The Florida State's lawsuit lays out 7 counts or individual charges against the ACC. Florida State's primary 2 arguments, the 2 arguments that this article breaks down, according to Jaratnam, are the ACC's grant of rights constitutes an antitrust violation and an unreasonable restraint of trade, and that its exit fees are unenforceable because they lack a reasonable relationship to the actual monetary damages the conference would incur if Florida State were to depart. Jaratnam isn't sold on the first argument. She's not sold on the antitrust violation part of it. Back in 2013, Florida State, Clemson, and the rest of the ACC member schools all signed a grant of rights intended to keep the conference intact. The document laid out how member schools exclusively, irrevocably grant the ACC their rights, most importantly, the right to produce, distribute football games for the entirety of the contract's term, regardless of whether such a member institution remains a member of the conference during the entirety of the term. We've talked about this over and over again. As Jaratnam wrote, this meant that were a member to withdraw from the ACC, it would be forfeiting revenue associated with its media rights for the remainder of the years before the grant of rights terminated. We all understand that. In 2016, Florida State, Clemson, and the rest of the ACC members signed a 20-year extension that goes through 2036. We understand that. ACC schools signed that grant of rights extension as the conference inked a 20-year television deal, which at the time was considered a strong one. We understand that. Sports Business Journal lists the ACC's 20-year deal with ESPN at being valued at $4.8 billion. Big money until you compare it to the more recent deals struck by SEC and the Big Ten. We understand that. We're going to skip over that part of it. Okay. It's also why Florida State and Clemson and other sports-minded ACC schools are worried about how the growing revenue gap between them and other top programs could affect things like athletic budgets and coaching salaries and ultimately the ability to compete for national championships. And I would add in, we all know it's happening, what's going to happen. The student athletes are going to get direct pay. The payment, the compensation is going to go higher and higher and higher. And Florida State's going to have more and more difficulty. Clemson's going to have more and more difficulty. North Carolina's going to have more and more difficulty in competing in the sports they want to compete at. Football, basketball, whatever. That's a fair argument, Nam said, but it doesn't completely match up with FSU's claim that the ACC's grant of rights is an antitrust violation. So she's not buying the Florida State's claim on the antitrust violation. Federal and state laws surrounding antitrust are intended to protect the public from harm to competition, not to protect an individual person or company's ability to compete in the space or get out of a poor contract. Here is the PATC money shot of this article. If they win, this is Jaratnam. If they win, as I wrote in the article, I don't think it'll be on antitrust, she said. This is not really competitive harm to the consumers. It's more like a bad deal for Florida State or a deal that became bad. That's not an antitrust violation or restriction of trade. Jaratnam sees more merit in Florida State's claim that the ACC's exit fees projected by the university at $572 million for 2023 are legally unenforceable. Here's how the exit fee, as denoted by the grant of rights extension, would go down for a school attempting to leave the conference per Florida State estimations. $429 million in forfeited media rights through 2036. That's $33 million times 13. $13 million for unreimbursed broadcast fees. $1 million times 13 years. And set an ACC withdrawal penalty of $130 million. Florida State in this lawsuit essentially alleges this $572 million price tag is more of a scare tactic or an attempt to dissuade schools from leaving the ACC, as opposed to a fair calculation of how much monetary damage a school leaving would actually cause the conference. The ACC has never undertaken any analysis to determine whether its penalty apparatus in any way approximates the consequences to the ACC of a single member withdrawal, according to the lawsuit. This $572 million in fees is a form of liquidated damages, which, as detailed by Cornell Law School, are damages used when actual damages, though real, are difficult or impossible to improve. Liquidated damages are a routine addition to contracts between parties and provide a clear monetary value to compensate the injured party while saving time and resources. Jaron Tom sees a lot of validity in that argument. This is where Florida State has a winner, according to her assessment. Florida, like most states, permits this as long as it has a reasonable relationship to damages, she said. Here they're saying there's no way these damages are worth $570 million, which is probably correct, right? In that it's intended purely here to deter withdrawal, that it's a penalty. She also finds it interesting that the ACC, in countering the lawsuit filed the day before Florida State's lawsuit, did not defend. The ACC did not defend in its countering lawsuit, which happened to be filed in Mecklenburg County a day before Florida State filed in Leon County, did not defend the $572 million exit fee or attempt to explain the decision-making process behind factoring in a school's media rights for the entire length of the deal into it. The conference's primarily argument in filing is that since Florida State voluntarily signed the 2013 grant of rights and the 2016 grant of rights extension, it's unable to challenge the document's validity. That's not a strong argument, according to Jaron Nam, because in every case where a damages amount is being challenged, the parties are acting under the contract. In other words, the act of signing a deal doesn't prevent you from challenging it. And although the ACC could lay out its defense of the exit fee in future filing, which it has not, the idea that it's more of a daunting penalty to prevent schools from leaving instead of a number that bears a reasonable relationship to actual damages has some legs, Jawat Nam said. It could be that a court says there's no way it's $570 million to leave. That's forfeiture, Jawat Nam said. But the court could say, but it is $130 million, which she believes Florida State would be willing to pay. I would agree. Everybody in the chat room would agree. I don't know what that number is that Florida State wouldn't be willing to pay, but it's the $130 million. They do that in a heartbeat. What it means for Clemson. Okay, what does it mean for Clemson? Because we're focusing on Clemson. It's January 20th. It's the day that we were told, November 15th. It's the day that we reported to you. It's the start of this possible window of action. And we believe they are going to do it. What does this mean for Clemson? A lot would need to go right for Florida State for such a ruling right down to where the lawsuit is heard. It's unclear whether it be North Carolina State Court, where the ACC filed, or Florida State Court, where Florida State filed. There's also a scenario in which the court rules in favor of the ACC on all grounds, striking a huge blow to realignment efforts, or Florida State and the ACC reach a private settlement and negotiate on a new exit fee, leaving the grant of rights intact for other ACC schools. Okay? Jay Ratnam's piece, though, presents an intriguing alternative for Clemson and its fans and supporters clamoring for a new conference in a situation where a state court rules all or some of the ACC's exit fee, namely the $472 million or so in forfeited media rights, an unenforceable, that would be beneficial to not only the Seminoles, but their other ACC colleagues. Even if a court were to find Florida State's claim that ACC's violating antitrust law is invalid, a ruling in favor of Florida State on its unenforceable damages argument would constitute a win for the Seminoles. Now get this, with that ruling in hand, they'd be able to initiate an exit from the conference at a large but far more manageable price, perhaps solely set at the $130 million exit fee. Florida State has two theories, J. Ratnam said. I think one theory will win. And it only takes one theory. The unenforceable damages argument is the one theory that she believes Florida State's going to win. And if they win that, then it could mean victory for all the schools that have a potential landing spot if they should happen to pay that amount and get out of the ACC. Going back to the article, and if Florida State's challenge of the grant of rights is successful, there wouldn't be a need for other schools looking to leave the ACC to file their own lawsuit, J. Ratnam said. They could initiate their own exit based on the court's public ruling in the Florida State case. They're all trying for the same thing, she said. If it's ruled unenforceable as to Florida State, it's a staircase. Then all the schools can benefit. They don't need to go second. That would be an intriguing outcome for Clemson, which according to Neff is committed to being great members of the ACC while privately exploring all of its other realignment options, including a potential move to another conference such as the SEC or the Big Ten. Leaving the ACC would be a massive undertaking in itself, as would securing the invitation from one of those two leagues. Yahoo Sports indicated the SEC is a less likely option for Florida State and Clemson. But Ratnam still sees a successful Florida State lawsuit as a good place to start. If it's unenforceable as to Florida State, it applies to Clemson too, she said. Clemson does not have to bring a lawsuit. So I guess they're lucky that the one school went first. So there's a lot to go over there. But according to, and I apologize, I'm screwing up the name, Jawatnam, a law expert, she's basically saying because it's the unenforceable damage portion of the lawsuit, that is Florida State's way out. That is their winning theory. That is what's going to get them the ability to get out of the ACC. Because they're going to win it on that account, that's going to be a staircase. Then the other schools are going to have that number in hand, and it's going to apply to themselves as well. So they don't have to be the second school. Now I got to tell you, I'm going to say something that I haven't said. We have been told quite the opposite to make everything more confusing. But we've said this. We have been told that no, it would have. If Clemson wants to make sure that they have an opportunity, that they were going to have to follow Florida State's footstep because the damages argument, we were told this now, that whatever number that happens Florida State, whatever that number is, it's going to be more damaging for the second school to leave. The number would not just replicate from Florida State to the next school to the next school. The actual money would go higher for the second school to leave because it would cause more damage. This is what we were told by Florida State Money Perch, their perception. This is why they think Clemson's going to follow close behind, even on the damages part of it. That Clemson wants to be, that it's better to be second, it's better to be first than second. It's going to be better to be second than third. This is what we were told. J-Ron Nam, great article. She could be completely accurate. I want to hear what you got to say. I want to hear what you have to say in the comment section or with your phone calls. But it's January 20th, and we had to go down this rabbit hole because this is the first day. This is the first day that really people really need to start looking. Keep your head on a swivel. Keep your ears open on what Clemson's going to do or not do. Every day before this, I haven't been bringing it up. People have been saying, what, Greg, any Clemson up? Because we were told nothing was going to happen. That they really couldn't even do anything because of some personnel. People weren't in where they need to be, whatever. Today is the first day that keep your head on a swivel when it comes to Clemson. Are they going to follow up? Do they agree with Jay Ratnam's legal advice, how she sees it? Or do they feel like that maybe they should get into a South Carolina court? You let me know what you're thinking. Okay, I'm going to get to your comments. Thank you for all joining us. Appreciate it. It'd be a mad dash for the exit if Florida State can get out for $100 million. She brought up the figure of $130 million a couple times. In other words, the exit fee, basically 24, 25, 26, 27, $33 million a year, about $130 million. And I think she's arguing definitely no damages after 2027 and beyond, even though that wasn't really said in the article. She's looking at $130 million. How high? If the judge said $260 million, would Florida State pay $260? I think they would. Joe Z, Clemson would be the next best option if Georgia Tech's not available. Immaculate, did someone say, GT, I'm going to open up the phone lines here. Not going to waste any more time. You can give us a call. Again, it's a very simple show tonight. We talked about Kaden Proctor, Iowa. The phone lines are open. 763-260-1333. Give us a call. We did talk about Kaden Proctor. Iowa, big time tackle. He played, not only did he play for Alabama as a true freshman, but he played great. He graded out beautifully. Caleb Downs going to the Buckeyes. Fafita, T-Mac, staying at Arizona. They're going to run it back. Holy smokes. Jim Harbaugh's second interview with the Atlanta Falcons. That's coming up. That was reported right before we came on live tonight. In the ACC football schedule, going to be a busy week. On Monday, they're going to be revealing the week 1 games, ACC. We know some of them. We know the Miami, Florida Hurricanes are going to be playing the Florida Gators at Florida, at Gainesville. We know Syracuse is going to be playing the Ohio Bobcats August 31st. We know that Clemson, the Tigers, are going to be playing the Georgia Bulldogs in Atlanta, GA, in Atlanta, Georgia on August 31st. We know some of those week 1 games. We're going to learn all the week 1 ACC games on Monday. Also on Tuesday, we're going to be learning the Thursday, Friday night primetime games. And then on Wednesday, we're going to learn the whole ACC schedule for football 2024. So, and then we're also going to be learning Wednesday, right, in the state of North Carolina, Board of Governors, they're going to be voting on whether they're going to grab just a little bit more power, grab the veto pen. We talked about it yesterday's live show. Holy smokes, they might be grabbing the veto pen when it comes to UNC, North Carolina State, when it comes to conference affiliation. If one of those public schools want to leave for another conference, they're going to have to put up a financial plan. And it sounds like if the vote goes the way we think it's going to go Wednesday, that the Board of Governors, the system president, they're going to have the veto pen, whether to say yay or nay on conference affiliation. Again, let's get to your comments. King Spleen, thanks for coming on in. Appreciate it. The phone lines are open. 763-260-1333. The media rights is officially through 2027. I think you're correct on that. I mean, if ESPN can just walk away, the gore is through 2036, but the gore is based in the media rights. So I think ESPN purposely closed not to extend it and will not now. They were losing money.
Call from
Immaculate.
Immaculate, Mr. Hawkeye. First of all, congratulations. Congratulations on Kaden Proctor coming back to his home state of Iowa, playing for the Hawkeyes. That's not good news for my Gophers. That's not good news for the Badgers. That's not good news for anybody. By the way, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you guys play the Buckeyes next year?
I don't know. I don't really want to think about that right now. I just kind of want to.
Okay. All right.
I've been watching, seeing what they're getting.
Yeah.
We'll just bask in this win for right now. And worry about
all
that
right.
loss later.
Okay. I apologize. Mr. Hawkeye, the floor is yours. What's going on, sir?
Well, that was a pretty big one. But it was also kind of funny that people were doubting. It was just like, oh, Iowa can't get someone from Alabama. Like, Saban's been stealing linemen and tight ends from Iowa for a while now. So this is another one of those. He was committed to Iowa, and he went to Alabama, and, well, now he's coming back to Iowa. So it wasn't much of a surprise. But, you know, some people forget that Iowa is kind of known for its offensive line and for training up those guys pretty well. They've got a few in the league, so it's fine. It should be interesting for next year with all the guys coming back and then adding him into the mix. It's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
I'm kind of more interested in this other stuff you're talking about, though. This GT, this Clemson talk.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, are they moving? Do you think, or are they just kind of paving the way for it?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Like Clemson, are they going to start to do something, or?
Well, we think they are. Did you hear me play the videotape of the tape from November 15th live show?
No, I did not. I was not able to get here right at the start.
Okay, no problem. I'll play it later. But November 15th, our live show, we reported a date range, and I played it again tonight, where we were told January 20th to February 6th. This was their window, and we believe that they're going to pull the trigger. We still do. Now we may have to take an L on that, Immaculate, right? But we were told, and I showed the clip, and I'll do it again when we get a break with the phone calls. And we said it on November 15th. You're going to see it in the clip that we were pretty sure it wasn't going to happen before January 20th. And I said, and I've said the reason why tonight. I couldn't say it then because. And I really can't say it tonight either. But there's reasons why. There's some of it's personnel. Some of it's people were not going to be in the building. People weren't going to be available. Whatever. It wasn't going to happen before January 20th. We also were told, and it didn't, right? It's January 20th today. That's why we're doing this show, because it's the first day of the window. We were also told it wasn't going to happen after February 6th. At least no one believes it's going to happen. And one of the reasons why, because of this, one of the reasons why, not all of them, one of the reasons why is the winter meetings of February 15th. That Clemson's not going to go in the winter meeting, discuss all this stuff, the plans for this next year, possibly vote on stuff, and then in early spring, middle spring, or late spring, come out and say, oh, by the way, we're suing the ACC. We were told this back in November, okay? So there was...
Would that look like bad faith?
Yeah, bad faith, exactly.
Yeah.
That they, relationship-wise, they just wouldn't do that. I mean, it's one of the reasons... it's one of the reasons why, well, Florida State did it in December 22nd, but their plan was to be early first quarter, whatever. We all know that.
Yeah.
But, so we were given this date range. This is the time. This is the time. We've started the date range. Okay, this is now. Everybody has to have their head on the swivel. But, this is a great article. This is another way. This is somebody who doesn't think Clemson needs to do anything, because the weakness in the ACC course is in the ACC's case is the unenforceable damages. The penalty's way too high, and if Florida State gets a ruling on that, then it's a staircase. Everybody's going to win on that, and everybody can now pay that certain exit fee. However, Immaculate, now, see, I brought that up because I don't want to get caught in a silo. I wanted the other side, so people understand. We were told way back a couple months ago, we were told, and we brought it, we hinted at it a couple times during the last couple months, but we were told that Florida State believes that Clemson would come up, because even if Florida State won on the damage, the judge says this is way too much money, $250 million, whatever that number is, that it might become more expensive for the second school, because it would be more damaging to the conference if that second school leaves, right? The damages won't just replicate itself. That's what the money perch guys, this is what they believe. This is what they were told by Florida State people of in a decision-making capacity. So they got two different views of this. It's important that Clemson jumps in to do what Florida State's doing, to negotiate a number, to get a number, because nobody thinks this thing's going to be replicated. It's a win for everybody, and everybody has the same opportunity, the same particular number. But then this lady, this expert, says, no, it would be a victory for everybody. The number would be set. So I just wanted to bring both things up tonight. And anyways, I apologize. The floor is yours.
Oh, I was good. I was listening in. That was kind of catching me up there.
Yeah.
I think of the opinion that everyone might just let Florida State do this.
Mm-hmm.
And if they get out, they get a number. I think the Big Ten would take them and be like, oh, we're going to sit at 19 for a little while. I mean, yeah, there's some scheduling issues, but for a situation like this, I mean, they wouldn't do it just normal, they're out there, we'll grab them, we'll deal with the scheduling issues. But to get this thing rolling, they might deal with it for, 2 or 3 years, knowing there's an end point to it. It's not forever.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I don't. And if they have to help out Florida State with some of this cost, I don't think they're going to want to double up on that with Clemson. I don't think they're going to want to promise that much aid to both of those schools. So it'd come down to, does the SEC want them? And who? I almost think it's a lot riskier for Clemson, just because trying to get that promise that you have somewhere to go, it makes it much more risky. So yeah, I think we might not hear anything.
Okay.
But if other schools all start poking around, then they wouldn't be alone on that. And that might be when the ACC has to make an all-around settlement deal, right? With everything going on with the NCAA, I mean, do you really think they want to keep this going long-term while the entire life of the NCAA is possibly on the line when, they've got all the employee status stuff going on, Congress is going on, and then they have this to deal with too? At some point, like the presidents of the schools at the ACC, they got big problems to be worrying about right now on top of this.
Yes, they do. And maybe that's why see, I keep going back to what Doug Rohan said on your show about how in this amended complaints that ACC issued, basically saying that they think Florida State should not participate nor be a voting member until these lawsuits are settled. And basically, when the ACC did that, they're actually quickening things up, knowingly quickening things up, because if they get that ruled in their favor, if the ACC gets that ruled in their favor, then what Doug Rohan said on your show is that then the courts are not going to want Florida State to be subjugated to the ACC for a long period of time without any voting rights, without any participation. So this would force the courts to rush this, to get this thing resolved. So, in other words, in my opinion, and it could be completely wrong, Immaculate, but in my opinion, it almost seemed like the ACC kind of made the decision, now let's go for the clean, quick knockout, or if that doesn't work, if it goes pear-shaped on us, let's go for the clean, quick settlement. Either way, let's get this done quicker than not. With what they did with the amended complaints. What do you think of that?
Well, when he was saying that the amended complaint was largely due to them responding to what Florida State put out, that made a lot of sense to me. In terms of, there was a couple things on there that I thought were, like you're saying, maybe it's for what you're saying, but the part, where they would lose their voting rights, that made me think right away, well, that's going to call in state of Florida officials. That can make this thing go bigger.
And quicker.
So I think that this was like almost like the ACC was playing in terms of, before we sit down for a settlement, we want to make as strong of a position as possible so that we can control that settlement as much as possible. Because like you're saying, this is it kind of feels like an overstep. Like it's just one, and plus it's just one vote. I don't know how often they need a unanimous vote. So it kind of is also them saying something to Florida State, but looking at everyone else.
But is it now? Is it an overstep, or is it a clever way of speeding this process up?
It could be. Yeah, you could be absolutely right. I'm not refuting that or saying yes. I don't know. I mean, this is, we're guessing to a lot of this. There's not much precedent for this.
Yeah, no, there isn't. Yeah.
So it's kind of like looking at the situation, and I'm just kind of keeping my eyes a little bit more on the long term at this point, because the way the short term stuff is going to play out, I have no idea. I mean, you have connections, you hear stuff. I do not. So just kind of watching for, actions speak louder than words sometimes.
Yep. And Clemson hasn't said a word. Nobody can get them on record. And this is really the first day that we believed, because we were told this. We did not just, throw a dart at a cat. This is the first day. This is like the first time where Clemson could really even execute something like this, which is big and large. So if they don't do anything in the next 3 weeks, we're going to take the L here. But right now, like, you said, it's like now we're watching. Now action speaks louder than words. Clemson's not saying anything. I mean, they're not saying anything to anybody.
Yeah.
And people have asked. I'm just going to tell you. I'm going to say that people have asked. So, yeah.
I think at this point, I think we might not hear anything from them. I don't know why they need to wait, other than, they don't know for sure where they could go. If there's more cost for being the second one out, as you're saying, which I have no reason to refute it, so I'm just going with that.
I don't know. Yeah.
Clemson, I'd want to go out at the exact same time as Florida State.
Yeah.
I want to go out after them. So I would be pushing right now to be working on the same timeline, to be working with them, to be part of the same settlement. But to go on their own at this point in time and to be separate, that doesn't seem like a very good idea to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's got to be soon, or it's not. If that makes much sense to you, because I think the Florida State.
Yeah.
Like,
I agree, sir. It's got to be. It's got to be now, or they're not going to do it. You got to jump into that before they settle.
I mean, the ACC might settle with Florida State real quick if what you're saying is right.
Yeah.
Because then it means no one else can get involved, and it's like, okay, who's next? The price is going to be like double.
It could be. I mean, what some people believe.
I don't know if I believe that or I agree with that, but I have any way to refute it. And so that might be the case. And so, you got to take that into account.
Yeah. Now, of course,
I don't know.
Very smart people disagree, and I'm not a very smart person, so of course I have no idea. But
yep, we'll have to wait and see.
It's interesting. I'm glad that this article came out because it shows the other side of it. That it really painted a good picture for us to think about.
Yeah, it certainly timely and kind of makes you wonder.
Yeah,
'cause that was just a Charlotte publication, right?
Yep, the state, and it came out on the 18th. It came out digitally today. No, it came out. I saw it digitally on the 18th. Maybe they updated it. They have two different dates on it. It came out. I know it came out the 18th. I saw it on the 18th. One of my associates sent it to me. And I was planning on having a show on it yesterday, but then the North Carolina thing happened. And I was like, okay, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it January 20th. Seems like a good day to talk about it.
Yep, that was a good pick.
Yeah.
I was wondering that. But no, that makes sense. When you use that date, you might as well out here and talk on it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I appreciate it, man. I was just kind of interested in the whole Clemson situation and getting on that. Me personally, I'm kind of watching for smoke to start coming out of other schools. And when that happens, then I think that might be when we have some serious discussion going on in there. And word might be getting to the soldiers. So we'll see, buddy. But go Hawks and,
Yeah, congratulations.
All right, buddy. Have a good night.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkeye. Yeah, and the reason why we're talking about this, I'm going to show it one more time, a little quick tape of it. The reason why we're talking about this on January 20th, Saturday night, when you all should be watching the Packers and the Niners, and I'm sure you are. You've all got family, loved ones. There's a whole bunch of things, other things you could be doing. The reason why we're talking about the Clemson thing on January 20th, because we reported to you all on November 15th. Again, I'm going to show the clip. This was November 15th. We reported a certain date range. We couldn't delve into why this date range was created. We've been able to talk a little bit about it tonight on why this date range it wasn't going to happen before. It probably isn't going to happen after. Anyways, take a listen. This was our November 15th.
John.
John, the floor is yours. I'll get to my clip after your phone call. How you doing, sir? The floor is yours. What do you got to say?
Well, I wanted to ask you, Greg, if the option for ESPN has to be put in by 2025, if they're going to renew the option for the money for the network, would that affect the penalty for FSU or any other school leaving? Because I believe it said it was $130 million.
Yeah.
But that would be set for till 2036, right?
Yes,
not
sir.
2025, 2027.
Now I'm not a lawyer, right? But I gotta believe that the exit fee would have to be $130 million or lower, right? Probably lower, because by that time, if you're still in the ACC, you've played out the 2024 schedule. They have to make the decision by February 28th of 2025. That's their deadline. I think the exit fee would be zero or very, very low to zero if ESPN is able to walk away. The ACC still holds each school's individual grant of rights, but the payment to get out of it's got to be pretty small, don't you think?
Yeah, well, and I believe in Florida, if the penalty is so excessive, which it is, the courts. Now, this is just what I've heard.
Yep.
The courts will count it as excessive or zero. So that's why I think that Florida State has always said we're not worried about the grant of rights. I think they already knew they had an ace in the hole there.
Yeah. And
the exit itself was probably holding them up.
Yep, and this lady law expert that we just went through the article, she would agree with that. It's an unenforceable penalty, $572 million or whatever. It's way too high. It should be at about a $130 million mark. And Florida State's willing to pay it, so it's just now. If she's right, if you're right, if a lot of people are saying the same thing, if they're correct, the state of Florida State, then now it's about the settlement, right? When do we get this settlement? At what price? Florida State might be willing to pay a little bit more than $130 just to get this done with, right? So.
Yeah, like I say, I was thinking, since 2027 is kind of the pivot point. Well, actually, 2025 may be, because it's going to tell us what's going to happen at 2027. That would really kind of regulate the exit fee. I was thinking, and then maybe, we saw North Carolina State, North Carolina, their legislature or board of governors yesterday working. They may have had a little tip off ahead of things, what was coming down today.
Yeah, maybe that's why they're voting. That's why they're voting maybe Wednesday, right?
Yeah, people are kind of positioning themselves right now.
Sure.
And I kind of felt like Clemson, with that vote, with North Carolina State situation yesterday, it kind of weakened Clemson. But if they move quickly, I think people are pairing up.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to see the rest of the way out.
You could be right, sir.
All right, I appreciate it, and I enjoy your show.
You got it. I appreciate it. Please call again, sir.
All right, will do.
Yeah, thank you so very much. Great call. Great call.
Great call.
Okay, so what I was setting up, I'm going to set it up again here. This is what we reported on November 15th. We gave a specific date range to watch Clemson if they're going to make a declaratory statement in regards to the ACC. This is what we reported on November 15th. Again, we showed this at the start of the show. We got new people coming on in for Saturday Night Live, PATC. Let's take a listen to what we said on November 15th. Just a couple minutes. So, I I'm going to give you a date range. I'm going to give you a very important date range. Now, does that mean that tomorrow's not an important day, or Friday's not going to be? Oh, this stuff, this could change. And if it does, you can give me a hard time in the chat room or with your phone calls. You can go after me, because it might happen before this. It probably isn't going to happen after this date range, but it could happen before. I'm going to give you an important date range. You can take this however you want it. And I'm not getting in trouble for putting it out there. At least by the people who've given me the information. Now I'm going to get, you guys know how this works. I'm going to get dragged through the coals on this. Everywhere. Just like I did with USC, called the Big Ten. Just like I said, Colorado, it's at the center of the stage. And I told you that there was a hop up of action and that there were donor meetings in late May. I got dragged. I'm going to get dragged for this. That's fine. But I'm not going to get dragged by the people who told me this. That's what's important. I'm not saying what your opinion is important. It's very important. You can drag me. But the people giving it to me, I'm going to be able to harvest the field over and over again. I'm not getting in trouble with them. I'm okay with getting in trouble with you. I'm not okay with getting in trouble with them. But they gave me the go-ahead. That's why we came on here as fast as we possibly could. The date range, the important date range of Clemson making some sort of declaration, some sort of public stance in regards to leaving the ACC as it stands right now. We were told it's somewhere between January 20th and February 6th. So there it is. And we've explained why the date was so important. It couldn't happen before January 20th. I could never really explain why, but we did a little bit today. And it's January 20th. So they didn't do it before January 20th. Clemson did not do it before January 20th. But are they going to do it in the next 2.5 weeks? Are they going to pull the trigger before February 6th? We were told way back. We've been told again. They're not going to wait after the winter meetings in February 15th. It'd be in bad faith. They're just not going to go to those winter meetings and then in the second week of March go, oh, by the way, we're suing the ACC. Clemson is not going to do that. Now, I'm going to say this. There are other people, really smart, important people who've been in the college football world, reporting world, investigation world, whatever. They're waiting. They are in the same spot. This is what they've been waiting for. This window. If Clemson doesn't pull the trigger before February 6th, in the middle of the first full week of February, they don't pull the trigger in this window, they're going to do the wait and see. They're going to wait and see on Florida State. They're going to fall behind Florida State. Now that might not hurt them if you believe in the article that we just put out. And we did provide a link in the description so you can read the whole thing. Okay? There's an lawyer expert here saying that, if Florida State wins on the issue of an unenforceable penalty that it's just way too much, then it can be a win for all the ACC schools, and there doesn't have to be a second school to come in and challenge it. We went through this article. Again, if you're showing up late to our show tonight, go check out the link in our description, the Charlotte Observer. Read the whole thing. Florida State is suing to leave the ACC. Here's how it could help Clemson too. It's a different take on what we've been told. It's a different take on what we've been reporting to you all, but we wanted to, I thought it was a great article. I thought it was important for everybody to listen to. Go ahead and read it on your own. Interesting stuff. Real interesting stuff. Again, we're going to open up the phone lines. Once again, I just wanted to go back to that November 15th live show to give you our reporting on it. The phone lines are back open. 763-260-1333. If you're new to the show, or if you haven't done so yet, please hit the subscribe button. Smash the like button. Have your notifications on.
Call from
JD.
JD, Mr. Seminole is on the line. The floor is yours. How is your Saturday night going, sir?
It's going great because we're talking realignment, and we talk realignment 365 days a year, don't we?
No, not quite. Not quite.
Well, I'm ready for the FSU part of realignment to be over with so that I could just be an observer.
Yes.
But I got a lot. I'm going to try to keep – I actually made a list here, so that way I kind of speed things along here. But, as far as Clemson goes, Clemson makes a move if they have a landing spot. If they don't have a landing spot, the worst thing that can happen to them is for them to receive some type of injunction and not have voting rights or anything else with the ACC. So if they're going to do what FSU is doing, they have to be assured they have a landing spot. Does that make sense?
I understand people. They can go through the process as long as not having voting rights and participating. If that doesn't bother them too much, they can go through the process, right?
Sure.
They can get a number figure, being the second school. And then they can go have big boy talks with the SEC and the Big Ten official talks. And if they don't have a landing spot, or if the money's something's wrong, then Clemson doesn't even they don't have to write that check to the ACC. It would help if they did, it would help if they were assured of a landing spot with third party talks. I think they're, I people disagree with me, but I think they're pretty optimistic that they would have a landing spot. But go ahead.
No, I was going to say that if Clemson, there's kind of a point of no return, and I could be wrong about that. But when you step out and you file a lawsuit against your conference, I don't know how you go backwards. And maybe they could if they decided to stay. But I still contend in some capacity the ACC is going to try to withhold revenue payments moving forward to FSU. Mm-hmm. Clemson could be in danger of the same thing. That's why I say, well, if they're going to lose voting rights and future revenue payments because the ACC is going to consider them as having given their exit, who knows how the judge is going to rule? I don't know, and obviously I'm not a lawyer. But what I'm saying is there is danger for them to make the move without knowing, or at least having some assurances that something would open up for them. But that's, we'll see. We'll see. I could be wrong. I could be wrong on the revenue payments. I'm just making some.
Yep.
I just don't think FSU's ever going to get another dime from the ACC. So, but as far as the antitrust stuff that the lawyer was talking about,
Yeah.
I think that's just a mechanism to get the state of Florida involved. If you didn't have that in there, I don't know that they could get involved.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of where I don't think the state of the antitrust was necessarily their main play, but it was just a vehicle so that they could get the help they need. And then let's see. I still think that 2027 is the smoking gun because think about it like this. FSU's leaving. ESPN's not going to renew the deal as it stands. I mean, what's your opinion on that?
What was that again?
The 2027 option for ESPN to renew, or the 2025 option to renew the deal. What was it?
I mean, it's February 28th. The option for ESPN to continue on after 2027 with
yes, sir. After 2027.
But I think ESPN. I mean, I think there's a very good chance that ESPN's going to know how successful Florida State's going to get in buying their way out of the grant of rights. I think ESPN's going to make a decision real close to that February 28th, 2025 deadline. Either way, they're going to wait. They're going to wait to see what happens here.
I don't believe that if the ACC exists, it'll be a renegotiated contract. I just don't believe that it will be the same contract. Because if FSU and Clemson leave, it's anywhere between 30 to 35% of the value of the entire contract is now gone. And I think those are accurate numbers. It's either like 31 or 35%. And I'm sorry, Stanford, Cal, SMU don't equal. Those aren't a comparable replacement for the two brands that are leaving. It just doesn't. Dollar value, it just doesn't match. When you sit here and think about when that contract expires, does it expire for the 2027 calendar year, or is that for the 2026 calendar year? Because that potentially shortens the life of the current media deal for ESPN by an additional year. And I also have a real question on whether or not, the ACC, it exists, it's an association, but for them to charge an exit fee to a member, okay, they have to bring something of value. If there is no media deal, I question whether or not the exit fee is even enforceable. And it's all a timing thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's all if you're leaving, and I think there's a lot of ways that FSU can get out of this for less than $100 million. Right now, this has to be the most chaotic and the most unnerving situation for the ACC.
Yes. Yes. I think, and I could be wrong. So this is just, I'm guessing here, but I think that boy, I don't know. I was gonna say the universities, when a university, I don't know if this is gonna make any sense or not, but when a university says, like for 2026, the revenue that a university makes when it comes for 2026, it is between July 1st, 2026 to July 27th, July 1st, 2027. That the revenue in between July 1st of 2026 and July 1st of 2027 is the revenue that you say you made in 2026. So when you
Yes, sir.
So for when it comes to ESPN, when they say they can walk away for 2027,
You see, that's the part I don't know. Is that the date the contract ends? Because if that's the case, then the 2026,
yeah, I don't know.
the beginning of the 2026 football season, or whatever, in the summertime, I guess it's what, July or August, and when the new calendar year, as far as the TV contract starts, and then it runs through the following summer. So that's the question. So I just see a lot of places. I asked, the claim that the lawyer had, and I thought it was actually, it made sense to me because I was asking Doug Rohan a similar question. And what my question was, and I didn't know if it had merit, that's why I was asking him, is that because the ACC gives schools a vehicle to leave the conference, I understand these schools signed a grant of rights, but does the ACC have legal right to still try? In other words, does the ACC have the authority to hold media rights to former members? Okay? It doesn't matter if they signed a contract.
Yeah, I think
do you have
do.
the legal right to hold?
You're talking about the media revenue, right?
Yes. In other words,
I
don't know that my argument would hold water, but it's kind of, he was using some of the, when he responded to me, he was using some of the same terminology that the other lawyer did, is that it's possible, yes, that the media revenue or the penalties on the media revenue that the ACC would try to put on FSU might be unenforceable. And I was using it from a different aspect, but it was kind of the same. You get to the same result, Mm-hmm. That was my claim is that how can a conference if FSU paid the exit fee, left, and the ACC says we still hold your rights. Well, is it legal for a former conference that has no authority over you anymore? Is it even legal for them to have your rights? And I guess you'd say, yes, it is, but how would they enforce it? They're not eligible for any of your revenue from a different conference. I guess the only thing they could do was file injunctions with networks and through courts and things like that.
I'm not a lawyer, but
yeah.
But how I've always understood it is, right. So
yes, sir.
So the ACC has Florida State's media rights. They own them. Okay, they own them. So if Florida State went to the ACC office and says, "Here's $130 million, his exit fee. We're going to the Big Ten," the ACC's still going to say, "We own your media rights." So what happens is the Florida State home games are going to be being played on ESPN. Yes. ESPN's going to give money to the ACC. That's what happens. ESPN don't give money directly to the schools. They give it to the conference. because that's where the contract distribution contracts at. And then the ACC has this pile of money, and then they distribute it per what their bylaws say. And then they look in their bylaws, and it says that Florida State's a withdrawn member, so therefore all the money's going to go to the other schools.
Well, I understand that argument, and that's an argument that I've made for a long time, is how it would work out. But then I just started thinking about, okay, well, in theory that's what we would assume. We assume that's how it would all work out. But as we say, it's unenforceable. What if, even though they signed the arrangement or the agreement, their claim to FSU's media rights now might be unenforceable because they're no longer a conference member anyway? And I know you say, well, that doesn't matter. You signed it over. Well, you still might not have a right to it because you only have a right for conference members. So, and again, I'm not saying that would work. I'm saying is that I just started having a philosophical question, and I got to the same result that this lawyer was talking about, was whether or not these penalties are enforceable. You know, I also contend that if FSU left and they were replaced by somebody else, and ESPN honored the contract, the ACC didn't incur damages because they've replaced them with somebody else. You know, you can't just all of a sudden assess $500 million of penalties because someone leaves when you didn't have any liquidated damages. You know, so anyway, I've got a million things I could go through, but I appreciate you. I appreciate you bringing all this up tonight, and sorry if I was confusing.
No, you're just fine, JD. Appreciate your phone call, like always, Mr. Seminole. Call again, and we'll take it day by day here.
Yes, sir. Have a great night.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks.
You know what? Everything's confusing. No one knows what's going to happen. But one of the things I think we can all come, well, maybe not. Maybe not. But hold on.
Call from
Jamie Thornton.
Jamie, can you hold on just 1 second?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, the one, it's all confusing. This thing could go in so many different ways. But one of the things is, we've been told this over and over again, the Big Ten, the SEC, they're not going to be any official talks with any ACC school about an official landing spot until the ACC school clears themselves from the ACC grant of rights. So there isn't going to be a scenario, in my strongly held opinion, where a school goes to the SEC of the Big Ten without their media rights and their games that get played on ESPN, and none of the money goes to Florida State or North Carolina. That's just stuff isn't going to happen. You got to clear yourself. You got to own your own media rights as a school for you to enter into the SEC, for you to enter into the Big Ten, to give value to the SEC, to give value to the Big Ten, and to give value to their media partners. Jamie Thornton, thank you so much for your patience. The floor is yours.
Well, Greg, I have to start off by saying, woo pig suey. I've given my wife enough of Husky's love.
Got it.
So I told her that's over with.
Beautiful.
I said that's over with for now, you know.
Yeah.
But no, you just nailed something that is so important. And you talked about it with Washington and Oregon, right? The Big Ten didn't even want to, after they took USC and UCLA, they did not want anything to do with Washington and Oregon until multiple schools had left the conference, you know, after that.
Yes.
They're not going to want to come in there and just be like, and the same thing with the SEC.
Yes.
They're not going to get their hands dirty. And this is just something for people to think about. These schools are not stupid, right? Like, we see what's happened to Florida State. Every one of these ACC schools know that could be them. and it would easily be them, that the ACC has no power. They could be shafted just as bad as FSU was, and I think that's a big reason. Pretty obvious. The writing is on the wall with that. That was such a game changer with the 2027 thing, because it's pretty obvious to just about everybody, right? There's a lot smarter people than me and you that can see the writing on the wall, and they know what's going on in 2027, and we're seeing what's going on in North Carolina. That is such a huge thing.
Yeah.
I got to talk to Chris again about that, and he said it's such a huge thing.
Yes.
Because they know what's happening, and I wouldn't be surprised to see a Virginia Tech scenario play out, because we can talk about who wants who. The SEC obviously would love North Carolina and Virginia. They love here's what I was told. They love North Carolina enough to bring another school with them, but not necessarily Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
So Virginia could very well be the Oklahoma to the Texas-Oklahoma, where they were begging Oklahoma State. We could have a scenario like that with North Carolina and Virginia, where Virginia begs to take Virginia Tech, and the SEC just says no, that you don't have the leverage there. But what I was getting to with this is also a big advantage for the SEC and the Big Ten, in the fact that they know if this plays out the way it could very well play out, and ESPN decides, you know what, we're done with the media deal, we'll try to renegotiate something, right, in 2027. Why does the Big Ten have to be in a rush right now to add anybody else? I mean, Florida State's not going to come into the Big Ten until at least 2025, probably 2026 at the earliest, really.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So why would you not sit back and say, if you're the Big Ten, like, we're not, same thing with the SEC, really, but why are we going to get ourselves into any potential legal problems when we can just let this play out? And then there might be the chance for, if you're the Big Ten, you might be looking at and saying, hey, these schools, we can just go and get them at one time. If there's no media deal, if they leave, or even patient enough, if they see where North Carolina and NC State or whatever there goes to the SEC, they might even try to swoop in and get Virginia. I'm sure they would love to have Virginia, with Maryland right there and everything. So, but the key of the big thing is not really matter who's going to take who right now, as it is that they're not going to be in the rush to do it, because they want to see, is ESPN going to void this contract, and they don't have to worry about legal issues, the legal mess of it. And on top of that, I think you're going to see more of these. You said it, Greg. I mean, you nailed it. You were the first one I heard to say this a while back. When this ACC expansion goes down, or the conference realignment goes down from the ACC, there are going to be a lot of politics involved, and we're already seeing it next week.
Yes.
And I wouldn't be surprised if the state of Virginia follows behind in some way. I know they want Virginia and Virginia Tech going together the same place. You're going to see a lot of that, I think, between now and then. So.
Yes, you are. Next Wednesday, obviously we're going to be covering that live. The vote in North, I believe, I could be wrong on this, but I believe that meeting is going to start at 1:30 Eastern time. So now I don't have that confirmed, but usually the Board of Governors meetings are 1:30 on Wednesdays, but just so everyone's clear, this was not, they don't do it every month. This was not a scheduled Board of Governors meeting. It wasn't scheduled. It isn't on the docket. In fact, a day ago, yesterday, it might be there today, but a day ago on their website, it wasn't even on the schedule yet. You see the months, they have one scheduled for February, but they don't have one scheduled for. So this is something that they've been, they have their motivations why they want to get this vote done, to get the power by this Wednesday, And
I was told this too, Greg, by Chris. I was told that this would not be happening if in other words, they weren't planning on the obvious, right? Because they realize what's happening. They're not dumb. They realize what's happening, and they realize what happens if you become a Washington State, an Oregon State, or you, God forbid, whatever's left of the ACC becomes a G5, and everyone's going to go into protection mode. They're going to be supporting their own state schools like that. It's going to get crazy. And I was told the same thing that you said. I know there was a couple of people that called in on your show. I watched it afterwards, but I was told absolutely, it doesn't really matter, because if it all comes down to where they get the vote and they can do it off the financial plan, and they say, whoa, here at North Carolina, you're going to the SEC and with this new media deal, you're going to be making $110 million a year on your media deal. And NC State, you're going to, well, we don't know where you're going. The new ACC, the Big 12 to make $42 million or $30 million or whatever it is, and just it doesn't take a lot of, you don't have to be a genius, high IQ to realize the devastating impact that would have. And then especially, we don't even have to we haven't even brought up NIL or anything like that, and the cost of what it's going to be on top of everything else. So it's just, people need to understand how important revenue is and what's going on. That this is going to be interesting for sure, between now and 2027 for sure.
Yep. Beautiful. Thank you,
you
Jamie.
take care,
Appreciate
Greg.
it.
You have a great one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thanks for the call. Say hi to your wife. Thank you so very much.
I was very lucky. She just made dinner and she's doing the dishes, working hard, and
Beautiful.
She just said hi and go Huskies and woo pig suey. So everybody have a good one.
Got it. Mrs. Razorback. All right, so we're gonna wrap it up here. We've been on the air for 2 hours. It's Saturday night is all right for PATC. We're going to be doing more of these late night Saturday night shows. We had to do one tonight, January 20th. January 20th. This is the first day with inside the go or no go for launch for Clemson. What are they going to do? Are they going to launch? Are they going to challenge the ACC grant of rights in some county in South Carolina? Or they're going to wait and see. Are they going to have Florida State do all the work for them? There's so much going on next week in college football. The schedules, the ACC schedules are coming out, the football schedule. Monday, they're going to release week 1 games. On Tuesday, the ACC is going to release Thursday, Friday night games for 2024. And then on Wednesday, the ACC is going to release all their games, all the dates. Everybody's going to know the schedules for each and every, what is it? How many ACC schools? 17 of them? Throw in Notre Dame? Wow. And, of course, Wednesday in North Carolina, I think it starts at 1:30 Eastern Time. The vote. The Board of Governors are going to vote. And we'll see if they're going to take some power away from the individual institutions, the public institutions of North Carolina State when it comes to, realignment. Kaden Proctor is now a Hawkeye. Caleb Downs is now a Buckeye. Fafita and T-Mac are going back to Arizona, and Jim Harbaugh is having his second interview later on with the Atlanta Falcons. What does that mean for Michigan? College football is crazy. Every day is full of drama. Stick with us here at Peek Around the Corner. If you're new to the channel, or if you haven't done so yet, please hit the subscribe button. Smash the like button if you liked our content tonight. If you did not, hit the thumbs down button. Let us know how we can better serve you, the college football fanatic. I want to thank you all for coming on in this Saturday night. Keep your head on a swivel. Follow us through this next week. Until next time, from all of us at PATC to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.